private stay
Have you ever had an experience that you felt was totally too embarrassing to share? Today's topic: 3 reasons your mess is the secret to making money.
Welcome to the Influencer's Journey. My name is Suzanne Hart.
And I'm Taria Hodge.
This is the big question. How does the average entrepreneur like us, who started with limited time, zero marketing budget, or little to no presence in the market, get their authentic message into the marketplace and become a person of influence?
And what skills must you learn? And most importantly, who are you required to become to magnetically attract your divine clients and build a loyal following?
It's a great question.
Yes.
Good morning, almost afternoon. Hello, everyone. We are sitting in Ottawa, Canada. This is the social media strategist Taria Hodges' last week here. We have been hopping all over this area, sightseeing and working and snapping some photos. So how does it feel?
Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. I can't believe that the time is coming up already. Oh my gosh, but it has been a wonderful time just meeting and connecting with everyone, plus getting to see all of the beautiful sights of Canada. So those of you who are across the border on the south side, you have to make it a point, to come north. It's absolutely beautiful up here.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I say we live in God's country, but that's just me, a little biased. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this show. I'm excited for this conversation. We are going to be talking about a little bit into storytelling and a concept called mess. And it is about, where do you find those beautiful messages that you want to post on social media, that you want to use when you're doing your videos? What stories do you tell? It all starts with this thing called the mess. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, Taria, when I first learned this, what struck me was when I was in network marketing, and that's how I entered into this journey. When top earners would take the stage, they would always talk about, it was like they went from zero to hero overnight.
Yes.
Me not having gone zero to hero and was stuck below the making real income, below the making any income for a period of time. I was like, what is wrong with me? And what I heard from other people was that they felt discouraged. And while the stories were amazing, what was missing in the story was this thing called mess. And I remember the first time I took the stage, because my story wasn't zero to hero, I actually told my real story. And what struck me were so many people came up to me and said, oh my goodness, thank you for telling that story, because I've been stuck in this place going nowhere. And when I hear about your struggle, you're this, you're that, oh my goodness, I think I can do it. And that's when I really got the power of the mess before the message.
I love it. I love it. And, for me, I was the person who was embarrassed, to share their mess. So being an entrepreneur in the entrepreneur scene, you attend events, you network, and then you have a tendency to, kind of pretend, at least I was, pretending that everything was okay in my business. And the truth was, really, I was really a struggling entrepreneur. And just, being in circles, feeling like, wow, everyone is getting this and everyone is moving forward. But for me, it's like I'm still feeling stuck in the same place. And it wasn't until I had the opportunity to go on the Freedom Retreat with you and the infamous get stuck in the tree story, I really came to terms of what a mess I was and what a mess the business was on the back end. And so it's through being able to share that story and having the courage, I have to say that, having the courage to share it, then what that did was just unlock a whole new set of people for me. People started to come up and say, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, that's me. That's, I could definitely, relate to that. So I had to learn that it wasn't until I shared my toughest challenges,
Yeah.
that I started to attract my right people, what we call our divine clients.
And it's such an interesting thing because it's so, I would say, counterintuitive, because we think that it is the money, we think that it's the
Right.
success, we think that people are really interested in those things, and they are, but it has to be in context.
Yeah.
And it has to be relatable. And so what we're going to really dig in today is what makes you relatable and what's the context
Out there and you can see us, you could hear us, just go ahead and drop a line, drop a comment, and let us know, Taria and Suzanne, we can see and hear you. Okay, so we just want to make sure that we have a good feed here. So if you could see us, you could hear us, just go ahead, drop us a line in the comments, let us know you could see us and you could hear us. And then what we are going to do is continue on with our absolutely wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. So, you ready to get this party started?
I'm ready to get the party started.
All right. So, for those of you that are just joining us, welcome back to the Influencer's Journey Show. Our topic today is 3 reasons your mess is the secret to making money. Huh. Who knew?
Who knew?
My name is Suzanne Hart, and this is the beautiful Taria Hodge.
Yes.
And we are excited for this conversation. So, I think, as we do this, the first thing we probably should let people know is people are going to be going, the mess. What the heck is the mess? Is that the mess in my house? Is that the mess
Not that kind of mess
in my office? What is the mess? Well, it's the mess in your life, right? It's totally the mess in your life. So I want you to think about, and for those of you that are in business, I want you to think about rewind way back, and there is probably a mess that motivated or inspired you to do what you're doing now. And so when we talk about the mass, it's this time in your life when life wasn't working for you. When you might be thinking things like, for me, it was, this cannot be my life. This cannot be all there is. I was physically exhausted, financially upside down. I was no longer loving what I was doing. I was praying for something different, too afraid to take action. All those things. That was the mess for me. What was your mess?
My mess, I was hiding.
Okay.
Yeah, simple.
You had a business and you were hiding from what?
Just hiding from everything. Is that infamous imposter syndrome? That you have. Is like, oh my gosh, how do I show up and just serve, and everything is just like a total mess on the back end. And so hiding behind perfection, hiding
Okay.
behind looking good, all of that stuff. That was my mess.
Well, I think what's really interesting is as entrepreneurs, and if you can relate to this, say hell yeah, so put whatever you want in the comment section. There's a culture of hiding,
Mm,
and there's a culture of I gotta look good for the world because who's gonna
yeah.
hire a hot mess?
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta look good, and so I'm not gonna tell anybody that things aren't
Right.
aren't working well, or I'm not even gonna tell anybody that things weren't working well before I started my business. I am going to just put out that
Right.
beautiful, perfect persona, the airbrush
Yes.
pictures, the lavish photos, the everything's working, the slogans, the this, the that.
Right.
That is not real. So the mess is really about you going back and being present
Hmm.
to what was going on before
Right.
things happened. Now,
Yeah.
they might be wondering why this messy thing works.
Well, I'm going to tell you it works. So, one of the things that I'm doing this week, I'm reading the book Millionaire Messenger by Brendan Burchard.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that, he says that is so true is that people really, like you said in the beginning, people really can't relate, to you at the end of the journey. They really can't relate to the successes. So, everyone has, a mess, and what people, number one, are looking for is the relatedness, the understand. Do you get me?
Yeah.
That's what the question that I always ask. Do you get me? Do you understand where I'm at? What is it I'm going through? And the only way that people get that is that you have to share it. You have to be vulnerable enough to talk about, those tough times, those challenges, and then that's what really creates the connection.
Right. And the reason for that is that we actually connect in our pain.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. So it's what's really interesting is pain is very relatable
Mm-hmm.
because we've all
Right.
experienced it. High level of success for most people is a dream. It's not relatable. So when you just talk about your high level of success, for many people they can't connect there,
Right.
and what they're left with is, oh, you're not like me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the challenges I have. You don't understand where I'm sitting because all they see is the end of the journey.
Right. And I think what it is, it makes it so much easier for others, to make up the thing in their head that there's something different, unique, special that you have that they don't have. Because I know I used to feel that way. Oh, like success is for this person
Mm-hmm.
because they have a bigger network, they have more money, they have more opportunities, they have, and the list could go
On,
on.
and what's really interesting about that, I would say that there's a difference between a mentee and a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is a mentee sees your mass and relates to it as something that they are saying, I'm starting the same place. And if this person can do it, I can
Right.
do it. Therefore, I'm inspired. A fan is someone who looks at you and goes, oh my gosh, you are so amazing. And they put you on this pedestal
Right.
and they don't even include themselves in the possibility of
Mm-hmm.
ever reaching it. The difference is how we put stuff out into the marketplace,
Right.
what we talk about, how transparent are we willing to be about before the success.
Yes.
And that is the key thing, and that's why it works. I have been reading, or I read a little while ago, The Hero's Journey.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really cool about it, and I want you guys, someone can put this in the comment section. They say that every single one of us comes into this world to go on the hero's
Yeah.
journey. And the hero's journey is always preceded, like it starts with a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, are we courageous enough, strong enough to navigate the mess and come out the other side? Heroes make good coaches, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not the hero that's the coach, it's the person after the hero, and we'll talk about that. But it's the journey. So think about it, that if all of us are destined to go on this journey, wouldn't you want to just have an insight
Oh yeah.
as to what you do to get through this?
But that's the thing that
Did that
people
happen to you?
that's the thing that people are really looking for, and it just reminds me on how beautiful it is. And so once I really understood the concept, it made me take a look at challenges, and it made me take a look at experiences in a different light.
Absolutely.
So now I'm learning to hold things in a different way.
Absolutely. So now we're going to talk about, so now you know what the mess is. and I will give you a little caveat, is that when we talk about this with most people, they come and they go, I know what my mess is. And usually when they tell me, I'm like, yeah, that's not it. Because the mess isn't the skimming of the surface.
Mm-hmm.
It's the digging into the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the stuff that you're just like, oh, no. Remember I said, have you been taught that what goes on at home stays at home?
Mm-hmm.
It's the stuff that goes on at home that you think stays at home. Now we want to put it out into the marketplace. So when I first got told that, Taria, I was like, oh yeah, I'm from the island. Y'all don't know. I don't know about everybody else, but we don't do that. And I'm saying that because it is so counterintuitive that we run from it. And so the first time most people are told to do it, they give us what's safe. They give us what's comfortable. And we have some of that going on in our community right now. We have a practice community for new speakers. And some people, they're just skimming the surface. It's safe. And I'm like in there going, dig, I want to know more. What's the impact? What happened? How are you feeling? All those sorts of things. It's a different journey.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you're mentioning that, because one of the things that in my experience, one of the things that I had to learn is the vulnerability piece. And like we talked about, you asked, what's the story that, had me take a look? What was the mess, the hiding, and I didn't get to that until I actually went to the retreat, got stuck in the tree. But here's the most interesting thing that happened for me. I do believe, had I had that experience in another environment or with another set of people, I probably wouldn't have gotten
you've been just pissed off.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten to.
Because she was pissed off.
I was really angry. I'm stuck in the tree. I was really. Oh, I didn't have the opportunity to, really go deep with it and unpack it. So one of the things that I had to learn, and I think this is what you was just touching on, in the community, is giving or creating that space where people are able to be vulnerable enough to get to those spaces.
Right.
Because that's another thing, so my piece was vulnerability, and I went back and I looked at it. How many times in my life, was a space created for me to be open and vulnerable, and I needed that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things, when we started to take a look at our Unleash the Power of Your Story program, that's one of the first things that we said, is like, we're taking a look at, a program that will serve speakers, but how do we create an environment that gives them the opportunity, to really dig and uncover, the stuff in the story.
And I remember myself, what was really important was when I was learning to speak. One, it was probably one of the most vulnerable times of my life, because I was so shut down, and I was so private, not private really, but defensive. My defenses were all up. And so it was a little bit at a time. And I got the privilege of working with a coach that just, it was like he chipped away. Yeah. By asking me these little questions and putting me through these exercises. I remember, Tria, one exercise we did, I got broke right open. I cried all day. People looked at me, I cried. People smiled at me, I cried. It was the work.
The work.
But once I got through the work, it was like, oh my word. This is powerful. So, and why are we sharing this? Because that's the work. In order to really get to the places and spaces that we want to get, I tell people, entrepreneurship, growth is not for the faint of heart. It's for people who want to find the next best level of themselves, who want to get to that place where they're like, oh, I didn't know that life could be so juicy, or I could be so amazing. I'm going to say it. It's the work.
Yeah. So I have a question for you,
I
because
know.
this is one of the questions that I found myself asking is, how much mess is too much to share?
Oh,
So we know that there's a mess, but how much of the mess you share? And so I'm just going to kind of tee it up a little bit.
all
So
right.
I remember attending, I think it was a book signing event that I went to, and I listened to the speaker, you know, share her experience. And I'm going to be totally honest. By the time she was done, emotionally, I was a wreck. I could say I was even a little bit traumatized of the things that she shared. And I just remembered, the feeling of, like, why did she share,
Mm-hmm.
this story, So, how do you know how much mess is too much?
It's a great question, and we get this all the time. And so one of the things I have learned is that everything in your story, everything that you tell in your story must have a purpose. It must have a purpose. And so telling your story isn't therapy for you. It's messengering for your audience.
Oh, I like
It's
that.
creating the connections for your audience. And I always remind myself that I don't know who's sitting in the audience. So I've got to share enough information that I can create connection, but not too much information that I traumatize or trigger anyone. That's the first part. The second part is I need to share enough information that it's not so specific that people can't put themselves into a similar situation. So it is really interesting how you do it, and that's why I love to teach it, because it is can I paint enough of a picture with my words and my ability to tell a story that I take people on a journey, but I leave enough space that they are able to pick up the paintbrush and start filling in the story for themselves.
Right.
And that's when you get people saying, oh my gosh, you were talking to me. It's so relatable. So we all think that when you tell a story, it's the specific details that are necessary. It's not. It's the impact, the emotional effect on you, the experience, right? And it's those sorts of things. So the example I like to use, because this is often the case, is when people are talking about trauma, and so abuse, all those things. There's a need for some people to go into all the details, and then you get people like Tria walking out traumatized, going, "Oh, that was way too much for me,"
Yeah.
right? Whereas I could say, I was attacked, abused, and left just there at the side of the road. Now, that's enough information for someone to paint a picture. And then if I go into the impact on me, it's just enough. I want the picture painted. I don't want it's not the punching of your person. It is to paint the picture, because really what I want to say, this is where I started. This was the impact of what happened, and this is where I ended up. So, how much mess is too much? It's really around, what can I give about my mess that serves, that provides a place where the audience can connect and say, this person understands what I'm going through. So one of the things I tell is I tell my story of being embarrassed in front of the classroom. And the only words I actually say is, the teacher said, Suzanne, this is not how you pronounce the word. That's all you get. That happened. Suzanne, that's not how you pronounce the word. And I talk about the tone of the teacher according to a 6-year-old girl. Is it true? Not necessarily. And from that, I talk about the impact on me. You know, I was fighting the tears. My heart started to race. My mouth got dry. I wanted to sit down. I wanted to stop talking. I could hear the giggles. I tell you about the impact. And no matter where I tell that story, people will go, oh my gosh, that is so me. That's exactly what happened to me. Or they'll say, I had a similar experience. And they'll start telling me their story. Because I wasn't so specific, I leave enough room for all sorts of experiences to become available. And people will talk about it happening as an adult. People will talk about that's not my story, but that's my fear. Um, and what I'm doing is I'm unearthing the fears, the pain. So what I want to leave you with is that we connect in these places of pain, and you gotta, it's more the impact of the experience that really moves people, and your willingness to keep moving through it and get through it and rise from it.
Yeah. And the reason why we're talking about this is because one of the things that, I pay attention to is this thing that we have called social media.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah, that thing. Right. And so we have this thing that's called social media. And one of the biggest learns for me is that we all have a responsibility to our listeners or viewers and our readers. And it's about now being conscious about your content, and I've since changed it from content to connecting conversations, because that's what they really are. But we do have a responsibility to our audience. And so I love what you're sharing, because it's the same thing whether you're on the live stage or you're doing virtual stuff, you're on social media. Impact is everything. So how you share your information, what you decide to share, you have to take into consideration, how does that really make your audience feel? Because it is, like, seriously the defining factor if they continue to follow you, if they're taking the call to actions that you're putting out there in the marketplace, and then your overall on their overall opinion of your brand. So as we work together, that's one of the things that we're always conscious about when we're writing our shows, or we're writing our emails or putting things out there. What is it that I'm going to share, and how am I going to share so this best serves our audience and impacts them in a way that they're either going to get three things: is either going to give them insight, is going to challenge their thinking, or is going to allow them to move forward. Okay, so those are the three things that we always ask ourselves before we put our content out there.
And what's really powerful about what you're saying is that pain is a connection point. Movement from pain and rising from pain is inspiration. And so our job is to take the audience on a journey through the sticking points, through the pain, through the challenges, and show the rise.
Yes.
And that is the important place. That's how it works. Once you get that, the person is on a journey, and they go from to oh. And what you really want to leave your audience with is, if I can relate to her, if she can do it, so can I.
I can do it too.
I can do it too. Oh my goodness, this is possible for me. I want people to see me as, so I often say, not the unicorn. There's only one. Oh my gosh, she's so special. Because I'm just an average person. Now maybe it's for some people I'm doing extraordinary things, but we all have the capacity to do extraordinary things. Average people do extraordinary things all the time. That's what you want the relatedness to be, is that, oh, she's just like me. She started, she struggled, and look at what is happening. And you want people to be in awe, but in awe with their own potential as well, if they're willing to commit.
I love it.
So the last thing we want to talk about in this section is, how do you find the treasures hidden inside the mess? Now, this to me is the fun stuff.
For her, it's the fun stuff. For me, it involves a lot of tears and tissues.
It is the fun stuff. because one of the things about story and one of the things about this whole process
Mm-hmm.
is there's a place where we move from victim to hero,
Mm-hmm.
where we choose to stop being the victim of our circumstances, stop suffering. We decide to get up and say, I've had enough.
Yeah.
And I remember my I've had enough day. And then it was like, I need to do something differently. And I say that's the time I rose and I decided to be the hero in my own life. I wasn't looking for a hero. I wasn't looking to be rescued. As Lisa Nichols says, I had to become my own rescue.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the piece that makes things happen. When you and I choose to rise and become our own rescue, what happens is we actually get this. I don't know if you're all ready, but you actually begin to see the lessons, the gifts, the
Mm-hmm.
possibilities, the how you've been set up for success in your mess. You'll actually begin to realize that this thing that I'm fighting
Yeah.
through is preparing me for where I'm going.
Yeah.
You begin to realize that this messy thing that is so painful or so challenging got so many gifts in it.
Oh yeah.
When I teach it, I always say, remember, diamonds are made from coal. You've got to go under the pressure. You've got to sustain the pressure. You've got to walk through the fire and come out the other side. And in there, transformation, you are changing. So when people work with us, what we do is we help them go digging for the lessons. And it's always so much fun to watch because I remember when we had one student at UTP, she was like, stop the press, stop everything. Oh my gosh. And the tears started to flow, and they were tears of joy because for the first time, when she looked at her situation from this place of what's the gift, what's the lesson, she saw so much, so much. And that's where I believe that's what you're there here to teach. You're here to teach what you learned on the journey. And I'm gonna let you share a little bit about why that teaching is different than your content.
Oh yeah. Like you said, it's the connectedness, is the thing that really makes the content land.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to go ahead and share, and that well, we're going to come up to that, but I'm just going to go ahead and share, like, it's been one of the biggest shifts for me in my business. So before, I was that person who used to be like, let's just get to the training. Let's just stick to the training.
Mm-hmm.
This is the details. You could turn on your computer, click here, click here, click here. And I really and truly thought that that was, all it was to it. And that's all that people needed to hear from me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All of the other mushy stuff, you go elsewhere, but here you come to me, to get the technical part. And like I said, it wasn't until, I was faced with, my own challenge and my own mess, it opened up a totally different level of insight for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, oh, wow, this is really the stuff here. So this is what's blocking me from my next level. Like, I didn't even realize that, you know that what was the holder. I know that I was
Yeah.
bumping up
Yeah.
against something, but I didn't quite know what it was. And then when I had my own experience, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is what it is. And then the challenge was, how many other people out there are going through the same thing? And then what I had to learn was, I needed to develop the courage to go ahead and share it on platforms, because it's one thing to like work out your mess, and then it's like, okay, I'm just going to share my mess in small little pockets, or I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
share my mess in one-to-one conversations with people that I know,
Yeah.
people that I'm comfortable with. But once we're talking about how do you build your platform, and how do you build a following, how do you attract your divine clients, that's a whole new vulnerable space. Like, how do
Yeah.
you do that? And so as I started to work through these things, for myself, And every time I got like, oh, this is how you do it, then I recognize it in
Mm-hmm.
clients. And then I'm able to say, okay, I know exactly where you are. And
Yeah.
let me share with you what helped me to overcome. And it's amazing and interesting because I think the trick is sometimes we kind of minimize stuff or we kind of hold on to our stuff and we really don't see those things as the things that will bless and unlock people.
Well, I think we are so. This is a so we're going to go from IQ to EQ just to
Hmm.
make it really clear. So an IQ conversation as we go to school is the how-to, the skills, the experience, IQ. That is the North American experience, all IQ. What we're talking about is
Hmm.
EQ. And EQ is how do I navigate the emotions, the fears, all the things that keep me stuck and have me get in my own way.
Yeah.
So I can teach someone all the skills and all give them all the opportunities to
Right.
gain experience. But if they aren't able to master the EQ, mindset mastery, if they're not able to master the EQ, the emotions, the fears, and navigate it, they won't move. And you'll think they're being resistant to
Yeah.
the content. No, they've got stuff
Yeah.
happening and they're living past experiences that have said that's not safe, don't do
Right.
that, oh my gosh, what if you fail, all those things. So part of the work is to help people look at where they are standing in their own way, not out of choice but out of the blind spot that
Right.
was created in a past experience that isn't really a bit,
Yeah.
they can't access it until they get guided to it. That's why this other part, and when you share that stuff and you can begin to understand it and unpack it, you're able to work with your clients at two
Yeah.
levels. I'm going to give you the skills, but I'm going to help you navigate the places
Right.
that you might get stuck. Because I know I got stuck there too. So people go, why are you so good at mindset? Oh, late baby child. This girl was stuck in places and spaces
Yeah.
and really had to do the work to move. And so I can see it on people, I can feel it on people. I can it's like it's almost like you, you don't even have to say things to me sometimes. I'm just like, oh yeah, I know exactly what's
Yeah.
happening. It's because I've been intimate with it. And why this really works is because that intimacy is the difference between theory and practice. And when people want to risk and they want to risk investing, part of what they're really wanting to know is one, I get you
Yes.
have the theory, you know the information, but have you practiced this? So you can
Right.
give me the intricate details of what's really going to
Yeah.
happen.
What did you do? And it's when we start to share, like you said, those little things that are our experiences, you know, then you could really speak to it and say, hey, this is where I got tripped up, or this is where I got stuck. It forces you to take a look at things like when you're sharing or you're teaching your content. It takes you to, it forces you actually to take a look at those little minute things that you may not think makes a difference, but it makes all the difference in the world to your audience.
Absolutely. So, I just want, before I ask you, I have a question for you. But
Hmm.
before I do, I just want to check in with who our audience, who's out there. And of course, we see Cindy. Hey, Cindy. Nice to see you. And thank you for the heads up that you can see us and hear us and all's good. And then I see beautiful Pauline
Hi,
Smiley,
Pauline.
and she is one of our Mindset Mastery tribe, a successful
Mm.
entrepreneur. This woman's up to big things. It's so great to see you. Thank you for taking the time. And then I see Anita. Hello, Anita. For me, it's your first time joining, so it's wonderful to connect with you. Thank you for hanging out with us. And of course, we know that there's people that aren't showing up on other that are on
Hmm.
platforms, but they're not showing up for us. So we'll just thank you guys for just tuning in. Go ahead and comment. Go ahead and ask your questions. Hey, Stacy, love you, hon. So go ahead and comment. Go ahead and ask your questions because if we don't answer them now, when we go back and look at the stream, we'll definitely get them answered.
All right. So Anita is out there. And Anita, thank you, Anita, for tuning in from LinkedIn. And she's asking, what is the business of what we're doing here this morning?
Oh my goodness. So this is a one, it's a collaboration. Taria does social media. I do speaker training and mindset mastery work. And what we wanted to do was we didn't just want to speak to the person who wants to be the speaker. We wanted to equip entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, with an opportunity to look at the ability to speak and communicate as their secret marketing tool. It's something that you can carry with you in your back pocket all the time. And imagine being able to communicate with people in such a way that you move them, you inspire them, you position yourself where they're like, wow, I really need to know more about what you do. And you're able to do it in presentations, you're able to do it in writing, you're able to do it in emails, you're able to do it in posts, and you're also able to do it on live and virtual stages. Why is that so key? Because it is these intimate places and spaces that allow us to connect with our divine client, those people who are called to work with us. Because when we say certain things, they're like, this person gets me. Have you ever met someone you're like, oh my gosh, this is my person, I need to get to know them? We want to be able to put that energy into the marketplace. So that's the first part. So Taria, we help people put that out there on social media. That's Taria. Then the other part, mindset, is really helping people begin to look at the places in their life that were created, possibly more than likely in the past, that they're dragging into their future, and it's stopping them from creating the success they desire and the success they deserve. And so all of us have to do the intimate personal work that and have those breakthroughs that allow us to get to the next level of who we already are, but we haven't met that person yet. And we believe that once you do that, put that lesson in your back pocket, because people in your tribe, those people that are following you are going to arrive and they're going to get stuck in the same place. And now you're equipped to teach it, share it, and help them move as well.
Yeah. And like I said, in a nutshell, what we do is help average entrepreneurs show up in the marketplace as a person of influence.
Yes, absolutely. So, Taria, I want to ask you this question. So, when you first went through UTP, it was like, wow. And when you got stuck in the tree, you were like, okay, I'm mad at Suzanne, but then wow. and that'll be alive in and of itself. And so, when did you realize that sharing your mess actually was attracting people? Because I know most people go and try it and they're like, I hope this works, because seriously.
Yeah. So, well, let me just tee it up. So, for the past 6-7 years, I had an online show called Social Media Saturdays. And what I did on the show was, share tips, tools, and strategies to help entrepreneurs leverage the power of social media in the business. And I thought the show was going, very well until I was posed a challenge by my mentor, another mentor, Lethea Owens. And so after, got stuck in the tree, Lethea said, I think some things with your brand really needs to shift and change. And that was the beginning of me taking a look at Serve, Share, and Shine. And she's like, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to change your conversations in the marketplace from the how to. So you see, that's what I spent my time doing, talking about the how to going into like addressing what's the story, what's the why behind those, the how to. What are the things that tripped you up? What are the things that you struggled with? How did you overcome those things? And I have to admit that it was, kind of unsettling and unnerving for me in the beginning, because it was a totally new conversation. And I wonder just how, my audience was gonna receive this information or this new shift in the brand. And as I started to put conversations out there, it was like the most amazing thing. So
Mhm.
at first it felt uncomfortable and even funny. And after the shows, I was like, yeah, did I really do a good job? Did that line, was that well received? Then I started to hear people giving me back my language.
Okay.
And so people started showing up, talking about showing up, and people started to give me back shine. And I was just like, wow, this
Mm.
is totally amazing. This is cool. And so the thing that happened for me that didn't happen before is that it was easier for me to spot my people in the marketplace. So I never had that before. Like, yes, I would have people that would tune in, to social media Saturdays, and they would be like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. I love the information that you're sharing. Thank you. Bye bye. and then they would go. Or sometimes I would acquire clients, but it was like that missing, what's the thing that's missing the gel? And I felt like there was that revolving door. I don't know how many entrepreneurs out there could relate to that. Like sometimes your business feels like a revolving door because as fast as the clients come, that's as fast as they leave, and you're always on the hunt for the next client. And for some people, that might be okay. So if that's your jam, I'm not knocking your jam,
Yeah.
but that was not the jam for Taria. And so it wasn't until I started to have those conversations, and I'm so grateful for the challenge, I started to attract the right people, what we now call our divine clients. And one of the things that, started to happen is clients journeyed longer. So
Mm-hmm.
now we have people, I have clients who are with me for 2, 3 years, where everybody else in the marketplace was talking about you have a program, you launch a program 6 months and then they're gone, or 6 weeks, not 6 months, 6 weeks they're gone, 12 weeks they're gone, 3 months they're gone. And I was just like, no, that's not for me. I wanted something different. And so I started to attract those people who also wanted something different. They
Got it.
didn't want to do, the norm in the marketplace.
Got it.
So now I have a question for you. So
Mm-hmm.
my question for you is, when did you first grasp the concept of your mess will make you money?
I th- for me, it was one was the story I shared at the very beginning. When I was in network marketing, I noticed that the leaders would always share the highs and they'd never
Mm.
share the lows. And I watched people get excited and then deflated. Like just
Ah,
and they would relate to those leaders as like such amazing people, but there was a disconnect.
yeah.
And you'd literally hear people talking about what was wrong with me, why can't I do this, and people would quit because they were like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not good enough. And it wasn't that they were not good enough, it was something they needed to learn.
Right.
And it was a journey that they all did, because most leaders didn't say, this is my eighth company and this is the one that I'm having success with. Like those weren't the
Right.
stories that you were hearing from stage. So it's like, this has been my 20-year journey and now I'm being
Right.
successful. Those weren't being shared. So it was a very skewed and limited
Right.
conversation. Then for me, because I didn't have that experience, my coach challenged me to tell my true story from the stage.
Mm.
And I remember the day I told it and talked about being physically exhausted, financially upside down, failing marriage, my doctor telling me that I was I was on the brink of a breakdown if I didn't do something, quitting my job, leaving town, downsizing, getting into network marketing, nothing happening for 2 years. Like I talked about the whole struggle, but then I also talked about how the struggle grew me and all the
Yeah.
lessons and how I had to get past my pride and ask for help. And I just really dug into it. And I did this in like 7 minutes. And I remember the first time I did it, it was like the audience stopped breathing. And when I got off stage, I swear to God, I felt naked. But then people started coming up to me and saying, that's my story.
Mm.
Oh my goodness. You see me. That
Yeah.
is, I was ready to quit. All these things started coming up. And then, of course, being the first Black top earner in our company, people of color started coming up to me and going, I didn't think it was possible till I saw you. And I began to realize that what I was holding on so tightly and so privately, people were saying, that's what I needed to hear. And that's when I said, okay, all right, I will do the work to be able to get comfortable putting more of me. And I remember when I was asked, when David asked me to do this, he used to say to me, when authentic, transparent Suzanne shows up on stage, it will be all over. Because Suzanne used to show up in all her perfection. And he was like, nah, I wanted to get messy. I want truth. And the more authentic I became, the more magnetic I became. The more authentic I became, I tell people the distance between me and the audience became shorter and shorter. So that is really the piece. And it was this whole concept, message, movement, which is what, Unleash the Power of Your Story is all about. It's really that storytelling structure, that's that talk structure, that when you master it and you understand it, it frees you up.
And I was just about to say, for our audience, our super achievers out there who are listening, one of the biggest realizations for me, like I said, it shifted the way how I take a look at experiences now. And so I think before I spent a lot of time like in the victim mode. I would have like an experience and be like, oh my God, why me? La 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 la. Pity party, wine, drinks, come on over. But the thing about it is that there's so many stories that we have, and it's being able to understand the process in sharing. So whether you're on social platforms, even when you're on one-on-one, how are you using your stories to really build the rapport
and
the connection with your people, because that's what people are really looking for. So I have a couple of shout outs out there. I see Dr. Tawana Ross.
Hey, girl. Coach Tawana.
We called your name yesterday.
we see you out there on all those social media platforms.
Taking a look at that fierce picture you took yesterday. So love it. Shout out to you. Great morning. And then we also have a Facebook user out there. So I don't know who you are, but your message is powerful. Take away from me. Be consistent and authentic. We are not meant to serve everyone. And so thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly what the point is. So, we're not here. If you're still out there thinking that your business is, to serve everyone, like, no, it's not. It's for those people who you are destined to serve. And the way how you get there is through your connecting conversations. And like I always say, we don't go out finding clients. Like, we're done with finding clients. We're not out there finding anything. Our commitment, or our responsibility, I should say, is to show up and shine in such a way that we attract our divine clients to us. So thank you for putting that out there. And I see that it's Jules. Great morning, Jules. Thank you so much for joining us. It was so good to see you the other night too, Jules.
And Jules is one of our speakers. I will call you a speaker now, Jules, because you are rocking it. And she uses storytelling now, and it's been a joy to just watch you just sit in that place of power and use your story to touch. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen over the next few months, because big things are on the horizon. So thank you so much for joining us. So I would like to leave everyone with a how-to, just like 3 key tips that allow you to just really begin to kind of go, my mess, how do I find it? So these are the 3 things I'm gonna drop for you. So if someone can type these in the comment section, that would be fantastic. 1, identify the life situation that inspired your business, and think back. Because there's usually a struggle in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, this has to change. I got to do this different. And it inspired you because once you found the answer, once you found the solution, you were compelled to share it, teach it, make sure that everyone else who's struggling the way you were understands what they need to do. So that's the first thing. Then once you find that situation, you want to dig into those pain points.
Oh, yeah.
What are the pain points that came out as a result? What were the challenges that you had to go through to really come out the other end? And this is the third, because this is where the magic happens. Take the time to get out of victim mode and say, okay, what are the gifts in this situation? And then start looking for the lessons. Just that shift, you will be blown away at what you find. Now that's the condensed Cole's Notes version. If you would like to learn more about this, we definitely reach out to us around what is UTP. It's coming up in October. And why should you be a part of it? Because we dive into the structures that really help you find this information. And I tell you, it was life changing, business changing for me. This is what turned my business around.
Yeah.
Because when I started speaking and sharing my story, I tell people I got the $1 million story because that's what happened. And so things begin to shift.
Yeah, so they always talk about the $1 million story, but they don't tell you how to get to the $1 million story, because oftentimes the $1 million story isn't what you think the $1 million story is. Usually it's something much deeper.
Absolutely.
All right. So we are at the top of the hour. Thank you once again, super achievers, for tuning in and joining. If you are catching us on the replay, #replay, make sure you drop your comments, your takeaways, and let us know. And so before we close out, I'm just going to go ahead and leave everyone with the thought of the week. And the thought of the week is, scars are beautiful when we first see them as glorious reminders that we courageously survive.
I love that.
And that's by Lisa Turkhurst.
All right. So as we part, please remember to knock on the door of the Super Achievers Network. If you're not already a member, ask to join. We are going to continue these conversations. We dig into these conversations a little deeper all week, drop little nuggets, the resources, all that wonderful stuff. So you want to be in the group to be part of those blessings and conversations. And also, if you're interested in finding out more about Unleash the Power of Your Story, definitely
Well, why don't we give them an opportunity to have a discovery call?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so if you would like to have a call, I'm going to give them your link. So if you would like to have a call, to really see if this is a good fit for you, or just, have some ideas around it, you could go to http bit.ly talk with Suzanne, and that's Suzanne with a Z. So once again, bit.ly/talk with Suzanne. And Cindy, I trust that you're out there, are awesome note taker in the feed. If you could just go ahead and drop that in there for us, we'll appreciate it much.
All right. So as we wrap, first of all, please know you are brilliant. Know you are oh so very special. And the world is waiting for your unique gift. Blessings, and we will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.